Here's a tour of my business ethics class from the summer at Pima Community College. I did quite a bit of work to restructure the way the course was delivered and improve the assessments to be more real world and have more impact on students. So here's the result of that. So the course is taught in 13 topics. The topics are all kind of like modules on the left-hand side here, starting with topic 0, which is just all of that, pre-stuff that goes into the syllabus, schedule, etc. I did provide the students with a schedule of work, both in the format required and as a course schedule they could print out and kind of follow as they went. So each week they could see when the deadlines were and which topics they were covering. I also built in a little bit of a break in the July 4th week, which turned out to be a really good thing because I think many of the students really kind of needed a break by then. It's a really fast-paced course, so that worked out well. We didn't have a discussion every week, so some weeks we had double size quizzes and analysis. Okay, so going back to the table of contents here. Every time we had a topic, it followed pretty much the same format. So, for example, let's look at corruption in the global arena, for example. So there would be a checklist at the beginning. The checklist is for the students who want it, a way they can just make sure they've done everything that's required of them. I would try to include here, if there were discussion posts, when the first post was due, when the rest was due, etc. The next item in this list is an overview. So they have an overview of the case and the learning objective, or an overview of the topic and the learning objectives for the topic. The next thing is pages that involve learning activities. So anytime there's a learning activity, I included the vocabulary that they needed to make sure they understood in the activities. Relevant videos, sometimes podcasts, articles, and then questions and analysis. And these are questions that are fair game for, the what we call the questions and analysis, which is really a quiz that they take. It doesn't have a time restriction until it's due. So these are things they might be asked in the quiz. So that's something they can kind of keep in mind as they look at the topic. So that's kind of the topical information. And then they get cases from the real world. So in this case, we looked at Hawaii, or Huawei, I think it's pronounced. And they get questions for, what should you be able to answer about this case? Videos from the news, trying to use sources that fall in the green box of the media bias chart. Some great stuff there. So they're reading stuff from very recent news. This is a class that ran in June and July of 2019. And throughout the semester, there were updates to the Huawei case, and those would be included in announcements. So this case, they have another learning activity around corruption, a chapter to read, again, some vocabulary, videos and podcasts if they're appropriate. And then at the bottom, what questions do you need to focus on for this particular topic. Another case, so this was the Walmart bribery scandal in Mexico. Again, videos and articles related to that case. I try when I can, actually as my current practice, to actually put the dates and sources on all of the videos and articles, so it's very clear where the article is coming from and the date of it, so that in the future it's easier to update these when new information comes out. So the questions and analysis is simply a list of sometimes some multiple choice or multiple select, and then some written response questions that the students answer, that the same questions that were listed in the cases. When we have discussions, the discussions tend to be more oriented around show and tell. So I'll show you an example of a discussion that the students had to do in this class. So for ethical issues in the workplace, they had to, they looked at a lot of cases in the readings, And what's interesting about workplace issues is that the case law is constantly being updated. So they needed to do their own search for an employment law case and then share the name of the case, what realm of employment law does it fall under, why is it interesting, who's involved, what did the court decide. And then as their reply to one of their students, they need to talk about the implications of the case for employers, employees, and the implications of the case they read from somebody else to employers, employees, and what policies and training would you want to update. So it's kind of a show and tell. They choose their own case and show that and then tell on somebody else's. So we did that multiple times in the discussions. Another good example is the corporations and politics discussion, which was lobbying show and tell. So they had to go to look at, in lobbying learning activities, they were asked to perform a scavenger hunt about any organization they wanted to see what they did. And so in the discussion, they shared the name of the organization they searched for, and this is using the website Open Secrets, which houses all the data around lobbying. And then they would reply to this, and it was really eye-opening to students to share the information about an organization and then read each other's shares and just see how much lobbying is going on that they weren't aware of. So, wherever possible, the discussion topics are kind of personalized to pick something that's interesting to you and share about that. So when we talked about B corporations, they researched a B corporation that was interesting to them. And when we talked about media crises, they found their own media crisis from some company and shared on that. So tried as much as possible to make the discussions relevant to the topics, cases, and the students' lives. There is a final exam in this course. The final exam is a 40-question true-false that's designed to make sure that the students were actually the ones taking the course. So keeps it at a fairly high level of, do you know what these words mean? Do you understand the basics of some of the laws and philosophies of ethics? So, and it turned out that all of the students did, in fact, pass the final exam. So, a good culminating activity. Lots of writing in these. I graded all of the writing samples, blind grading, question by question. So I was able to use a lot of the feedback, on commonly missed things. I actually kept a document for each topic. So, for example, I just go pick one at random. Every time they had a question, I would write up the question, my notes about how to answer this question, and then some sample answers, usually about things I would say and how many points I would give it. So if there was an issue in the response, if they argued a framework incorrectly, that kind of thing. So I could just copy those comments into the dialogue for the feedback. So I found that to be really helpful in grading the question by question quizzes and a lot of writing. So anyways, that's a walkthrough of the business ethics course from this summer.